Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Bob Cannon, the headmaster of Veritas Scholars Academy. Welcome to our open house. It is 8 o'clock in the evening, here on the East Coast at least, on Tuesday, May 6th. I'm delighted to have you all here. We have a team of people behind the curtain here. I'm the only one on webcam at the moment, but you're about to meet some of my wonderful colleagues. I'd like first, however, before we get rolling, let us bow heads and hearts and pray before we actually enter into the information for this session. If you'll join me, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for an opportunity to get together here virtually with people from, I trust, around the country and perhaps even international places. Lord, that this session would be enjoyable, that you would give us words of wisdom, that you would answer all of the questions, using us to do so, Lord, for those who are interested in learning more about what Veritas is, what Veritas Scholars Academy is, even a little bit about Veritas Press, the larger company and what we do. Father, I pray that our discussion here tonight, our presentation, would even bring honor to you, and Lord, that we would be faithful to honoring your name. And we do pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, everyone. So these are a couple of our students, of course. You would expect to see our students on a first screen here for the open house. If we can go to the next slide, please. Actually, it looks like I have control, don't I? Oh, yes, look at that. All right, they've given me some control here. The agenda that we have in front of us is to discuss classical education. Some of you are probably familiar, but just to be absolutely sure, we'll talk a little bit about classical education. How does classical education look in real life? And in fact, it does contribute to real life. We're not just reading books and hiding in a corner somewhere. Our students are doing some wonderful things in industry and wonderful things in their collegiate studies as well. We have live classes that are applicable not just for full-time students, but for part-time students as well. We're going to talk a little bit about community at VSA. We'll hear a teacher testimony, which frankly, I'm kind of excited to hear about this. We have many teachers on our faculty, and I was delighted to see that Mrs. Kelly is going to provide a bit of her testimony here this evening. We'll talk a bit about the VSA Diploma Program. That's what we call our full-time program. Getting started with VSA, I believe that may be where we have a family consultant step in to give you a heads up about what it's like to engage with us for the first time. VSA's impact, and there's a lot of impact that we see ourselves having in students' lives, and by extension, what students are doing beyond graduation from VSA. And then, of course, at the end, as would be typical of a seminar like this, we have a question and answer period. And I think that we're going to roll through this meeting pretty fluidly, and so I'll ask that you do hold questions to the end, and you might even take notes as we're moving through the information so that you keep in mind what it is you'd like to ask about any of these things that we discuss with you. What is classical education? Wow, that's a big question. And I don't particularly love reading slides to people, but the people who put these slides together did a really wonderful job. And so I am going to reference them pretty closely. Not about togas and papyrus. That's a wink or a nod towards ancient Greece and Rome and what classical education used to be. Classical education today looks a little bit different from the way that it did 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. The classical model is the most timely and relevant form of education, we would argue. I have a lot of people who share with me that once they've had exposure to classical education, and there are other classical education institutions besides Veritas, we're not the only ones, but sometimes we'll have teacher candidates or families of new students, staff members I get into conversation with them. I discover that they were exposed to classical education 10 years ago or 15 years ago in another organization. Um, and there are some popular ones out there. As I said, we're not the only classical educator in town, but oftentimes when they come to me, they'll say, my goodness, this experience of classical education has been just wonderful. And oftentimes, and by a silent or a blind show of hands, those of you who are parents can put your hands in the air when I ask this question. How many of you had a classical education? And chances are, if you're anything like me, you didn't have a classical education growing up. You might have gone to public school. You might have gone to a different kind of private school, perhaps even a Christian school, but not a classical school. And the more that families and teachers and others who enter into classical education learn about it, they look over their shoulder and they say, man, I wish I had that kind of education for myself. Um, and now our parents find themselves reading some of the books that our students are reading, the great books of Western civilization, for example. And as they engage with the material, they learn more and more what it's like to be classically educated. It's, I can assure you, it is not a stodgy, boring kind of education. No, it's quite the contrary. It's actually an exciting form of education. And we'll get into what the trivium is on the next slide, but I'll just share with you now that we're leveraging how students think at their respective ages, or you might think of grade levels, and as we leverage how students think, which is aligned well with their developmental characteristics as they're growing up, we think that classical education probably does a better job than any other form of education at meeting children right where they are and actually leveraging some of the strengths that they bring to bear. We acknowledge the way that God has created people. And again, we'll get into that a little bit when we talk about the trivium in the next slide. So look forward to that. The third bullet here says that to educate classically is to search the past for its greatest insights and wisdom. And in fact, you've probably heard it said before that we should learn from history. And how often do you see adults, leaders, um, government leaders, business leaders, organizational managers making decisions where if they were to lean into the wisdom of yesterday, their decision making would be better discerned. But too often we see decisions being made where we scratch our heads and we think, why on earth are they making that decision? Why are we doing it that way? Haven't we learned from the past? And so here it's very important to us that we look back to the past and that we take note of the mistakes that others have made. And we also take note of the terrific decision making that others have encountered. And then we try to model the good decisions and we try to avoid the bad ones. So looking back at history, searching the past is something that we consider to be very significant here. We believe that in a classical education, students should reflect on or engage with what they think, why they're thinking it, and then learning how to graciously and even persuasively, sometimes we'll say winsomely, articulate their thoughts to others. A point that I'll make here, because I sense that probably most of you come from Christian homes. Most of you are moms and dads in Christian homes. There are some environments, even within Christendom, where we think things like um, we should learn how to win arguments. We should defend God's word. Some of these things get a little out of hand. We believe that by all means, we want to engage the culture. We want to engage those who believe. We want to engage those who don't yet believe in the important or significant conversations that we think are crucial to the development of a human. But we approach things here in such a way as to respect other people as being, how do we say, imago Dei, made in the image of God. We respect people for being creations of God, for being human beings, just like ourselves. And yet we can engage with them around topics that there's sometimes a lot of disagreement, and do it in such a way that we have their ear, we have their attention. They want to hear what we have to say because of the manner in which we approach them. We want to be rhetorically effective. We want to be winsome. And yes, we do want to persuade. And at the same time, dare I say, in a classical education, you'll even learn how to be open to the persuasion of others because we don't have all the answers. Sometimes others have the answers, and we ought to have the humility to listen to what others think. So, when you engage with students here, if you're a student at VSA, you'll find yourself not only sharing your own ideas with others, but you'll also be listening to the ideas of others with a degree of humility, and you're learning from teachers who have expertise in the various subjects that they teach, but also have a compassionate mindset and have hearts for the wholesome development of our students. It's not just academics here, it's way more holistic than that. Here's that next slide that I was talking about a moment ago. To keep it simple, I'm going to simply say grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Sometimes logic is referred to as dialectic. That's if you're feeling fancy, you might say the word dialectic. But think grammar, logic, and rhetoric. These are the three stages of what we call the trivium. Without getting into it too deeply, but some of you might be thinking, is there anything after these? Well, yes, there's actually a quadrivium. So I'll leave you to Google search that. It's kind of fun. It's interesting information. But let's stay focused here on grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Grammar is for the elementary school student. Think grades K through 6. When a student then moves on to 7th grade, 7th and 8th, you think middle school. That's logic. And when a student moves into 9th grade through 12th, their high school years, that's rhetoric. Now, what are we accomplishing at these three stages? The grammar stage, and again, as I said before, we believe that children are designed, people are designed to learn in certain ways at different stages of their life. So in the grammar stage, or those elementary years, we believe that children love information. They love to absorb lots and lots of knowledge. How many of you know the song for the ABCs? Every one of us probably does. That's a very small example, probably a primitive example, but still a relevant one, that the ABCs we know typically by song. And in the grammar stage, we like to have children singing and rhyming and chanting. So they're leveraging these methods to remember the information that they're taking in. And we believe that, and sometimes you'll hear that students are like sponges in the way that they absorb information when they're young. By the time they get to the logic stage of learning, junior high, how many of you, again, by a blind show of hands, have currently or have had students who are in their junior high years in the logic stage? And those of you who are raising your hands, I'm going to make you chuckle. How many of your children in that stage in junior high liked to argue with you? I've got one right now. In fact, I kind of have two of them. And boy, are they fun. And man, are they frustrating at times. But we want to leverage this. It's the way that they are thinking. And so we align the way that we teach these students with that proclivity for argument. And we teach them to do it respectfully. Ultimately, what we're doing is teaching them how to think about all of those facts, all that knowledge that they gained when they were younger. So they gained the knowledge or the information. Now they're learning how to think about that knowledge. They're processing it. And we're setting them up so that when they get to the rhetoric stage, they will then be able to be articulate and persuasive and winsome, as we said a few moments ago. And that's where we want them to have an impact with the knowledge they've gained, learning how to think about that knowledge, and then learning how to communicate that knowledge and discuss it with others. That's grammar, logic, and rhetoric. That's breaking it down pretty simply. But let's see. I'm going to look here to the next slide. Whoops, I think I skipped one. All right, give me a second here. I think that I and one of my colleagues is, yeah, let's go back to, let's go to the map. If someone else is, yeah, okay, thank you. I see that virtual hand down there. I think we were a little too ambitious and two of us are trying to do this at the same time. So this is a look at our global student population. We have many, many students, as you can see on the left side of the map in the United States. Most of our students are domestic here in the US, but you can see the other continents where the yellow is, and that gives you a sense of other places around the world where our students are coming from. A word about our schedule. I love talking about this because it's just kind of fun to think about the development of the international schedule that we host now. Not that we haven't always been international in a sense. We have many students from other countries where they're able to attend our classes that are, for example, at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they've been able to attend those classes literally on the other side of the world, whether they live in China or surrounding countries or Australia or surrounding countries. 8 o'clock in the morning would be 8 o'clock in the evening for them. But we also, I remember about half a dozen years ago, we saw that there were students who were getting up in the middle of the night to study with us because they wanted a quality, rigorous classical Christian education. They wanted to do it with us. And I heard of students who were getting up at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And candidly, that was a little heartbreaking because it's not easy to get up in the middle of the night to go to school. And so about 4 years ago, we began an evening schedule, if you're thinking East Coast time, and we offered some courses between 7 o'clock in the evening and midnight. And that first year, 4 years ago, we had just half a dozen courses, just a handful. We then, in our second year, 3 years ago, we had 22 courses during those hours. Then we expanded it to 30. And then it became 55. And that's what we're doing during this current school year. And next school year, 25-26, starting in September, we're going to offer 75 courses that are not only between the hours of 7 p.m. and 12 midnight, but we've actually expanded that schedule to include hours between 7 p.m. and 4 o'clock in the morning. I anticipate within the next 2 to 3 years, we will almost surely have a round-the-clock 24-hour schedule so that we become more and more accessible to our students from Europe and Africa and Asia, Australia, from all parts of the world. And this is one of the most wonderful things about our classrooms. We sometimes have students from 4 or 5 different countries in the same class. Doesn't happen all the time, but it probably happens more than you might think. In fact, to be conservative, I'll say that in many of our classes, there are students from other countries, even if it's just a couple. But every now and again, it's really wild because we'll see students from 3 or 4 different countries in the same classroom. Naturally, they're from all over the United States as well. But this kind of diversity of student from various places is pretty exciting to us because we hear perspectives that we wouldn't otherwise hear as we're reading the great books of Western civilization, as we're studying all of the subjects that we teach here. So this is a really wonderful slide. This slide is a wonderful reminder of how our students come from all over the world, quite literally. All right. Uh, Lots of information. Let me walk us through this in the simplest way that I can. I'll try not to complicate this too much, although I know with every bullet point I could probably run off the rails and talk about it. All right, so we have live online teacher-led classes in a virtual classroom. I'm going to read through the bullets here because if I don't, I think I might be redundant with some of the information that I would give you off the top of my head. And if I miss something in the bullets here, I'll complement what I see on the page here. So our live classes have historically been for grades 3 through 12. And a couple years ago, we added some second grade courses. The second grade courses, for you moms and dads out there who are listening, they are designed to get your little guy or little gal comfortable or acclimated with our live online classroom. And we thought that perhaps mom would be sitting next to the young student in second grade for the first semester. And then mom could kind of quietly fade into the background. What we've actually discovered here, what we've seen, what we've experienced is that Junior is sitting next to mom, and after about 2 to 3 months, he's saying, "Mom, you gotta leave me alone here. I've got this." So I suppose we shouldn't be surprised that these young people are um, they like a challenge and they're ready to rise to the challenge more quickly than we sometimes expect. So live classes available now for second through 12th grades. And as a previous slide mentioned, full-time student, part-time student, we can accommodate you regardless of how you want to structure your schooling or your homeschooling in your home. There are school year classes available as well as summer classes available. More can be said about that. I keep talking about how excited I am about these various facets of what we do. I've seen us grow over time. I've seen us add ways that we can serve our families, and summer classes is one of those ways. A few years ago, we more than doubled the number of classes that we were offering during the summer. And so there are a lot of options in the summertime for you to take advantage of. And of course, in the school year, a ton of options there too. I'm looking around for certain numbers on this slide so that I know I'm not talking redundantly. I'll tell you that we have about 145 different courses that we offer. All of the typical courses that you would find in most educational settings, but because we're a classical school, we also have courses like Latin, logic, rhetoric, the omnibus curriculum. Omnibus is theology, literature, and history delivered in an interdisciplinary fashion. It's in that course sequence that we're discovering the great books of Western civilization. So there are things that do set us apart. And then we've been creative in a way to go to our faculty from time to time and say, what might you like to teach that we're not already teaching? And sometimes our faculty have these really great ideas about courses that we can add to the schedule. Some that come to mind, biotechnology, biblical theology and systematic theology, fairy tales. Uh, hmm, we've had calculus for some time with algebra as a base. And a couple of years ago, we added calculus with physics as a base, different approach to calculus. So we're constantly thinking about what else we might do for the marketplace, as it were, and adding courses to our schedule. To give you a sense of our scope, those 145 courses, because there are multiple sections of most of those courses, we have close to 800 sections of the various courses that we offer. So again, that gives you some sense of our scope and the number of students that we're serving here. We have actually at this point, I think it's over 175 amazing teachers. I often say to people that I've worked with some of the best educators in the world, quite literally, in my past working in higher education. And my experience here has been such that I wouldn't trade these folks for anybody. I work with some of the most delightful, competent, godly individuals that I could have ever asked for. When people ask me what the best part of my work is, there are several answers I could give. I suppose that the top line answer is the people. It's the people that I'm working with. But our teachers are real standouts in that regard. We just love our faculty here, and they are wonderful to work with. At the end of school years, which is coming right around the bend here, at the end of the school year, it's not just students who are pulling out their tissue boxes on the last days of classes. I see teachers pulling out their boxes too because they love their students. They love what they teach. They love their students, and they are consistently godly in their approach to these things with a biblical worldview. We're a university model school. We meet twice a week. Grammar level classes are an hour and 15 minutes each for a total of 2.5 hours of instruction on a weekly basis. And at the secondary level, that's grades 7 through 12, we are meeting an hour and a half every session for a total of 3 hours a week of instruction. We have honors level high school courses. We offer dual enrollment. We offer advanced placement. We don't offer many advanced placement courses, but we offer lots, dozens actually, of dual enrollment courses in partnership with Cairn University. We intentionally emphasize dual enrollment here, and there are many members of even our staff and families who would say dual enrollment was one of the best decisions that they ever made because they end up saving a lot of money and they give their children great preparation in a really tangible sense for what's coming next if they plan on going on to college or university life. There's an estimated 3 to 6 hours of work outside of the actual instructional time in our courses. That includes a number of things that you can see on the screen here. Active participation in live classes is important, and boy, is that an understatement. Really, really significant that our students are actively involved. In fact, I sometimes say to our faculty that when we observe teachers doing their work, what we want to hear are students' voices at least 50% of the time. I'm a big fan of lecture. I love lecture. But in this environment, and given the methodology that we use here, we want students to be engaged actively in the learning on microphone, on webcam, raising their hands, being active participants in the learning. And it's not just for them, it's actually for their peers as well. I mentioned the international student base that we have. Our international students from the United States to Europe to Australia to China, if they're sharing their thoughts with one another, then it's not just the teacher who's adding value to those discussions, it's our students as well. And that makes for a very healthy learning dynamic. So active participation is crucial. We distribute something called course assignment sheets. It's, excuse me, not a very fancy name, but it does the job. Our course assignment sheets, or CASs as we call them, we give you a sense as a family when students are going to be expected to do what. And these are important too, because when we have 27 sections of algebra using various curricula, so that's probably not fair. Let's say 15 sections of algebra using a particular curriculum. Those 15 sections need to be tracking the same. Uh, we ensure by our PowerPoints that we use, by the course assignment sheets that are communicated to you as families, those course assignment sheets and PowerPoints, they're also communicated among teachers teaching the same course so that they are all tracking with one another. That's the structure or the pattern that we follow to ensure that all of our students who are studying Algebra 1 using that particular curriculum are on pace with one another. There are all sorts of benefits to that I won't get into, but these course assignment sheets are wonderful to you as a family because they give you a sense of what's happening week to week as the school year progresses. Let's see. Community. I think that we may have a community slide here. So let me take a look. Oh, and by the way, look off to the right of this slide before I go forward. You can see all of the students on their webcams. This is not an everyday look in our classrooms. Usually, in our classes, students will come onto microphone and webcam when they're going to speak. And so that's the typical view. You will see the teacher, as you can see in this example. The teacher is just below all of those little faces. You can see him kind of off to the right at the midpoint of the screen. The teacher is always on webcam so that students can see the teacher and read the teacher's body language, as well as obviously hear the teacher's tone, inflection, and the words that they're using. All of those things are important in communication. So as the teacher is interacting with students, we will often not have every student on the screen, but we will have one student on the screen at a time, or maybe a couple, or maybe a smaller group. And that makes for a right learning dynamic. Every now and again, the teacher might say, everybody turn on your webcam so that we can have a look at all of you and, we can say a goodbye at the end of a semester. Or for some other reason, even a learning reason, you might have everybody on the webcam. You can see where the teacher is. I mentioned that. You can see that there is a PowerPoint. That's where it says 1st and 2nd Samuel. That's just an example of a PowerPoint that would be on screen while the teacher is leading the conversation with students. You can also see where just off to the right of that PowerPoint in white, there is there are two columns, and the first one shows the participants in the class, and the second one is a chat box. And the chat box is fairly consistent. It kind of rolls with the class, where as the teacher is expressing something or as students are expressing something into the microphone, people are chatting to respond. So they're using their keyboard as a means of communication when they're not using the microphone and the webcam. Okay, it gives you some visual or optics into what it looks like if you're actually in one of our live classes. And moving on to the next one, community. I'll simply say that there are many ways that we develop community here. You can read the screen to see that there are clubs that we offer. There are various community initiatives that we have under the label of community. You can see that we have leadership opportunities for students. I don't see something on here except by a picture. That picture where you see all the students with their hands extended out, that's a photo that would have been taken at our end of year gathering. And it's perhaps the best example of how community happens here at VSA, but it is a really small slice of the pie when you think about the overarching picture of community. I'll put it to you this way. When you go to the end of year gathering, which is 5 days at the end of a school year in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, this year we'll have over 1,300 individual registrants who are participating, and they come from all over the United States and some even internationally from other parts of the world. And when they arrive, they'll arrive at the Central Hotel where we have some of the events that are happening over the course of that 5 days. And imagine yourself walking into that hotel lobby and seeing students interacting with each other. And some students are embracing each other and they're giving each other high fives and they're laughing and they're talking about things. And when you observe this, you think, these kids act like they grew up with each other. It's like they've always known each other. And yet you'll discover that some of them are meeting face to face for the very first time in their lives. It is absolutely amazing. And I share that with you. That's the experience that I had 11 years ago when I walked into my first end of year gathering. The reason that that's so profound to me is that there's this question about being in an online environment like this, where you might say, well, what's the community going to be like? What are the social opportunities that our students are going to have? Aren't they going to be limited compared with an on the ground physical or bricks and mortar school? And the answer is no. No, it won't be limited. And in fact, I have reasons why I would argue that online, as these students are engaging with each other, it's actually superior to what they would encounter in a live setting on the ground in a community, in a particular town. I won't get into those reasons. And I don't want to step back into the logic stage and be argumentative. But I hope you're hearing my rhetoric here, and it's not so much to persuade you as much as to give you a heartfelt sense of just how powerful community building can happen in an environment like this. So I think that at this point, I am poised to turn this over to my terrific colleague, Amy Kelly. Mrs. Kelly is one of our teachers here. She's been here for a number of years now. And Amy, if you'd like to take the microphone, I'll go off mic and off webcam and let you have the floor. And I'll see you all at the end for Q&A.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Welcome, everyone. So glad that you are here, and I pray that God will lead you and your families where you're supposed to go next year and in the years to come. I am Mrs. Amy Kelly, and I have been teaching at Veritas for about 5 years. This is my 5th year with Veritas. But as you can see from the slide, I have about 10 years experience of teaching, all in classical education. I'm absolutely floored by classical education. I think it's the best. I'm all about it. I'm passionate about it. We have 2 young children who are also diploma students going through the school. And so we love VSA and we love classical education. Just a little bit about my background. I graduated as a homeschooler a long time ago, and then I pursued biblical studies, and then again, more Bible training with my Master of Theology degree. I have taught logic and rhetoric, composition, and Bible courses. And currently at the school, I teach at the high school level. I teach what's called Omnibus. And so I teach the Omnibus 3 secondary, Omnibus 4 secondary classes, which is geared, the Omnibus 3 secondary is geared for 9th grade, and Omni 4 secondary is geared for 10th grade. But I've had definitely a mix of ages in both of those classes. In fact, I have 11th and 12th graders, at least one of those each year in one of those classes. And then a new course this year, an elective biblical literacy survey of the Bible, is another class that I teach. And then just for fun, because I love learning, it's one of the benefits of teaching. You get to continue to learn and be in academia. I'm a part of a group called Society for Women of Letters. And so every month we read books like The Machine or Till We Have Faces or something of that nature. It's really a cultural apologetics group. And so we meet monthly on Zoom and discuss the books that we're reading, and we take turns leading, or we'll have an author come and speak to us. And so I love learning and growing. And in that way, even though it's not a formal teacher continuing education or anything like that, I consider it to be my own continuing education because I'm learning and growing on the side. And then through the school, we do have our own teacher continuing education or certification, and I have done that for a few years. I love listening to podcasts. I love reading books. I love my coffee, of course, and the outdoors. We live in Northern Virginia, just outside DC, and so our family really enjoys kayaking and hiking and seeing all the sights and sound around the area. We've only been here for a few years, so we've really enjoyed embracing what's here. And then, as I said, I have a wonderful family, 2 young daughters, and then my husband is an associate pastor. So he's been in ministry for our whole marriage, which will be 14 years this November. All right, so what I really wanted to focus on was this question that you see here, which is, what does it mean to be human? And this is a question we ask in Omnibus 3 secondary. The reason why I bring up this question is because we read a book called Frankenstein, which I know you all have heard of that book before. Because it's such a provocative book, I wanted to share one reason why students should study this book. With AI and transhumanism on the rise, what it means to be human is under attack. So what does it mean to be human? Well, this is just one question we ask and answer in Omnibus 3 Secondary, again, a high school course, when we study this book, Frankenstein. This is a dark book filled with dread and horror as Frankenstein's creature takes his revenge on his creator. For clarity, because not everyone knows, Frankenstein is the scientist, not the creature. Here's a brief synopsis of the story if you're not familiar. Frankenstein works tirelessly to invent a human-like creature, collecting limbs of corpses to create this monster. He spends 3 years with little sleep pursuing this endeavor. His pursuit is so crazed, it makes him sick. He is relentless to make it come alive. He succeeds. But upon awakening, Frankenstein is repulsed with his creation and flees. In short, the novel tells the story of the creature seeking revenge on his creator while blaming his actions on his abandonment and neglect. In other words, Frankenstein justifies his actions because of his painful past. Our analysis in class is from a Christian worldview. It correlates with Mary Shelley's purpose for writing the novel, the dangers of playing God. The danger of not asking ourselves, should I do this thing? Even if we have the power and means to do it. Frankenstein never asked himself if he should make the creature. He had the will, the power, and the means. So he did it. He never asked, how far should I go? Instead, he wanted to see how far he could go. There's danger in not taking full responsibility for what we create. There's danger of not accepting responsibility for our actions. One of the highlights in this unit is our mock trials, or our mock trial. Students come to class having prepared for this activity. It's not all serious. We have fun too. Before we begin the mock trial, students enjoy voting on a name for Frankenstein's creature. This becomes the name used in the mock trial. This year, students voted on Bob Marley and Mr. Beast. Yes, these were names suggested by the students, and other names were suggested as well. But Mr. Beast, not Bean, different person, Mr. Beast won with the most votes. Not only do students have fun with this activity, but their preparation ahead of time allows them to really wrestle with the notion of responsibility for one's actions. Frankenstein's creature goes to court. I'm sorry, Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast goes to court. Is he fully responsible for the murders he committed, even though he was unloved, even though he was neglected at birth? Or should his sentence be less severe because he was neglected by his creator, really his father? In this way, students have to engage with real life. Yes, neglect and abandonment are real and painful. These are serious and heinous offenses. This is what Frankenstein's creature experienced. Without invalidating one's past experiences, we focus on how one should respond to these experiences. We reflect not on nurture over nature, but nature over nurture. We have a sin nature, and as such, we commit horrible and cruel acts. We cannot blame our behavior on our environment. We are responsible for our own actions, even if we are not responsible for actions done to us. This is just one book and one course over 1 year. Students are challenged to think deeply about real life through the books we study. We get to evaluate life through literature and scrutinize the characters therein from a Christian worldview perspective. We don't always applaud the characters nor their actions. Our Christian worldview perspective gives us the discernment to know the difference between good and evil. So what does it mean to be human? We aren't God. We aren't more than human, nor should we try. But we aren't less than human either. We are image bearers. And with being human, we have limits, and we should exercise these limits. Our actions have consequences. With our actions come responsibility. I think every student benefits from studying Frankenstein in Omnibus 3 Secondary. As you can see, we don't glorify evil in this novel. We don't condone it. We face it, we recognize it, we evaluate it, and we put it in its place. I hope you'll consider an omnibus course for next year. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. I'm Susan Gimini, and I am an academic advisor here at Veritas Scholars Academy, as well as all 4 of my children have graduated from Veritas. And I love what Miss Kelly said. My kids, between the 4 of them, have taken 120 live courses. And as Miss Kelly was talking, just how they've been taught to think, how they've been taught to process. When I was in school, I was just taught to memorize. And I was memorizing random facts that now I can Google with my phone in 1 second. But at Veritas, you're taught how to think. Like she said, what does it mean to be human? I was inspired just by listening to her for the last 5 minutes. So I am Susan Gimini. I'm an academic advisor here at Veritas. What is an academic advisor? Someone to hold your hand to get across the finish line. So here is what the finish line looks like, and that is graduation. If you choose to be a full-time student with us, you would actually walk across that graduation stage. You would earn an accredited diploma, an accredited transcript. I help about 60 kids get into college every year, and that would be our diploma program. It is full-time. That doesn't mean you could be also part-time. Part-time, you might want to take a class here, a course there. Maybe you were inspired by what Mrs. Kelly said and said, I want to take omnibus with Mrs. Kelly in the fall. That could be a part-time student. But for full-time, you would be paired with someone just like me. There's about 10 of us on staff, and we would help hold your hand and guide you. I get kids in kindergarten, 3rd grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 5th grade, you name it, I get it. I get it from all over the world. I have meetings every day. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with somebody, I believe from Idaho, who is enrolling a child at Veritas. So let's just look at a little bit of my own journey. As I mentioned, I have 4 kids, and here is a collage of those 4 kids. And my oldest one is right here. This is Michael, and he graduated 8 years ago. Since then, he has now finished undergrad, and he is 1 week away from finishing dental school. My next one is Madison. She's over here on the back row, and she has also graduated undergrad and finished her master's, and she's a school teacher. As in that bottom right-hand photo shows a little bit more scope of who we graduate. We graduate about 110-ish every year, and as Dr. Cannon mentioned, from all over the world. I always like to point out 2 of Madison's really close friends, Carter from Saudi Arabia and Brooklyn from Ecuador, and still Madison is friends with those girls today. Next, we have Nick. Nick got the tall genes in the family. He graduated 4 years ago, and he just graduated undergrad a couple days ago. He was electrical engineering and has scored a fabulous job in aviation at Garmin International. My last one is Grace. Grace is in college, halfway through, finance major, and she's actually leading a mission team to El Salvador starting next week. So I like to share my story for many reasons, but most importantly, I'm not just Joe Worker who finally found a remote job in my field, but we put our heart and soul into Veritas for the past 15 years. Veritas is what has made our kids who they are today. My husband aptly says, quote, putting our kids in Veritas was one of the top 3 best parenting decisions we've ever made. So that is my story. And now I'm going to share just a little bit about our diploma program. So we graduate, our graduates go to every college, you name it, whether it's domestic or international. As I mentioned, I personally help about 60 kids get into college every year. We compete very well at the collegiate level. A lot of that is because we are classical, we're rigorous, and that looks good to colleges. At least every week, I have a student emailing me, hey, Mrs. Givney, I got into this college, or I got the top scholarship to this college. It's impressive, and it's exciting. It's not unusual at all. when students say, yeah, I got $25,000 scholarship a year, Mrs. Gimity. That's $100,000 if you could do your math. And I love it. We prepare kids well for college. Next, let's talk about advantages of our full-time diploma program. The first one is we have access to student government. This kind of goes back to our community. You might say, well, how, like, even we have a friend who kind of jokes with us, like, how do you have friends on an online school? Well, you do, because you have leadership opportunities. All my kids were ran for student government. Some were president, vice president, secretary, whatever, National Honor Society, and then Student Connections. Dr. Cannon is right that EOYG in May, which we'll be going to in a couple weeks rather, is a great place for connection. We have well over 1,000 teachers, students, siblings who join us. And my particular family, we've been 13 years in a row, minus one COVID year and one wedding year last year. Another big deal is you're going to receive an accredited transcript. I'll show you that in a minute. I talked about that. That is what is going to compete very well at the collegiate level. You're going to get grade tracking. Okay, just go ahead and call me nerd, because this is what I do every Saturday morning. I track my own diploma students, which I have dozens, times dozens, and I track their grades. And so I will look, oh, okay, I just found one of my students, her math grade slipped below failing. I was in touch with her mom immediately. I said, hey, did you see so-and-so did not get her last math test in? That has now made her grade go below passing. I liaison with the teacher also, and I reached out to the teacher, hey, did you see? We need to work with her, and we all come together to get her back on the track and smooth sailing. So that's that grade tracking. I think that's very substantial, and that is what I do every Saturday morning. So this Saturday morning, that is what I'll be doing. You have to have access to seminars. We put on some pretty great seminars, and that is for, many of them are for our diploma students. As I mentioned, you get an academic advisor, someone just like me, to hold your hand, who's gone through it. We do this for a living. I always say I feel like I was born to do this job. I love it. It's very fulfilling, and it's awesome helping so many families. We also assure your requirements are met. This is a big deal, because you might be in different states. You don't even know the laws. You don't even know what you need to graduate to go to college. We'll help you with that. Another thing I want to mention is NCAA. So NCAA, as you know, would be athletes, collegiate athletes. And our youngest son, the tall guy, he was a collegiate golfer. And we partner very, very well with NCAA. Basically, we ask you to fill out a form. It takes you less than 5 minutes, and we do the rest. I didn't think this was highly unusual until I was talking to a friend of mine about a year ago, and we were watching a game, and her daughter was trying to be a D1 volleyball player, and she said, mom had strictly just homeschooled the daughter, a little bit of hodgepodge and this and that, which more power to her. But when it came to NCAA, she said, Susan, I have spent 2 months trying to fulfill all the NCAA requirements. And that was kind of light bulb. It's like, oh, at Veritas, it takes 5 minutes and we do the rest. And this is also something that we can do for part-time students, not just full-time students. We're also going to help you with things like Common App, recommendation letters. I was just reading a letter from email from a student of mine today, actually tonight, before I came on here. And he said, quote, when I read your recommendation letter, Mrs. Gimini, I felt so proud of my accomplishments, and it really encapsulated my years here at Veritas. Thank you for that. It was memorable. So we will also do that for you. And I love this quote at the bottom here in the blue bar. This is from one of my moms who actually lives in the Dominican Republic. And she says, thank you, Susan, for always being there. You are one of the reasons I have stuck with homeschooling, knowing that you are just an email away with good advice when I need it. Many blessings to you and your family. I get these type of emails a lot, like at least 1 or 2 a week. And this is part of the huge reason why my job is so incredibly fulfilling. Next, we're going to talk about the transcript. As I mentioned, the transcript is impressive, it's weighty, and a lot of it revolves around this. And that is that we are accredited by Middle States Association. Middle States Association is the big boys. We're super proud of this. This is not little Christian school accreditation. This is the governing body who accredits places like Princeton. So it's big, it matters, and that stamp does help at the collegiate level. We also had a weighted GPA. What is a weighted GPA? A weighted GPA means you can get higher than 4.0. When I was in school in the dark ages, 4.0 was perfect. That meant you had straight A's. That is no longer the case. Now there's a weighted 5.0 scale. One of the first questions that's going to be asked on your college application is this: do you have a weighted GPA? What is that really asking? It's asking, did you have the opportunity to take honors courses, and did you take them? Well, here at Veritas, most of our courses are at the honors level, no matter who you are. Look at this. You can see this particular sample transcript has a ton of H's on the left. That denotes honors. That does not mean you have to be full-time diploma. You could take biology and it's going to be honors. We don't offer a non-honors biology. We don't offer a non-honors US government. So that is a big part of it, because if you get an A in an honors class, that is a 5.0 toward your overall GPA. So the school is rewarding you. And that is incredible, because at the school down the street, you might go take their biology, but you get an A in it and you're going to get a 4.0 toward your GPA. Whereas our biology, if you get an A, you're going to get a 5.0, and technically our B at a 4.0 is equivalent to the A at a 4.0 down the street. So another big part of our school are the DE courses. Dr. Cannon mentioned that. My next slide will flesh that out. We track distinctions. We track ACT, SAT scores. I was just in contact with someone about an hour ago. She was saying, Susan, how do I get my kid going on ACT, SAT prep? I said, Veritas to the rescue. We have a great class. And I put her in touch with that information. Again, that goes back to this hand-holding of an advisor that I am truly an email or a phone call away. We also can add your AP scores, etc. And this is going to round out the transcript. Next, we're going to talk about dual enrollment. What is dual enrollment? Dual enrollment is taking a high school course, paying an extra fee, not doing any more work. I said that correctly. And getting college credit. You do not have to be full-time with us. You could be part-time. What does dual enrollment look like? Well, here's what it looks like. If you take a senior thesis with us, it's going to count as English 101 at the college level. Every kid in college has to take English 101. So you have checked that off. If you take it with us, pay the extra fee, don't do any more work, and you get college credit. Next, another one of my favorites is Rhetoric 2, because every kid in college has to take Comm Speech 101. They might call it a little different, like Oral Comm, essentially the same thing, and that's going to check that one off. So now I have checked off 6 credits by simply taking these 2 courses in high school. Again, full-time or part-time diploma, it doesn't matter. You just pay a little extra fee if you are part-time. Another one of my favorites would be US government. Most kids in college have to take US government, not all. So if you figured out where you want to go to college and what you want to major in, this might be another one. And now you're up to 9 credits. I could go through this list one by one by one. I've done this hundreds of times, and I actually put on a 1-hour seminar just on dual enrollment and understanding how to use dual enrollment to your benefit. All of my kids took in 30 plus hours of dual enrollment. What did they do with it? The oldest, Michael, he got 2 degrees, pre-med finance. Madison, she got 1 degree that is usually almost a 5-year degree, and she squished a minor, a Spanish minor, into hers. What did Nick do? Nick was electrical engineering and a collegiate golfer. The coach says, we do not allow you to be engineering major. And I said, no, my kid goes to college for a degree. He took in 33 hours. I said, instead of taking 16 hours a semester, I can get him down to 13. Would you allow him to be an electrical engineering major? The coach begrudgingly said yes. He reminded us of this every time we saw him. Well, if he wasn't an engineering major, he could be practicing a lot more. And I would say under my breath, no, he's at college to get a degree. So he did walk across that graduation stage 3 days ago, and he was the very first NCAA golfer and electrical engineering major at the school in history. That is what his dual enrollment did for him. And Grace, she wants to be different. So she is getting a finance major, and she's actually picking up 3 minors, Spanish, dance, and nonprofit, because that's Grace. So that is what you can do with your dual enrollment. It is a huge part of our program. If you would want to learn more, as I mentioned, I do a 1-hour seminar. I have parents that tell me, quote, Susan, I listened to it 3 times so I really could understand it. So that's dual enrollment. Next, we're going to talk about AP. As Dr. Cannon mentioned, we do not offer a ton of AP classes. You might say, well, that's terrible. And I would say, well, let's talk about it. Just because you take an AP class doesn't really check off the box. It's the AP exam that you have to pass with maybe a 3 or a 4 at a state school, or maybe a 4 at a private school. Or I was just answering actually someone's question today, what AP score do I need at an Ivy League school? And you're going to need a 5 AP score. So if you take calculus with us, we're going to help prepare you for the AP exam. We're also going to, so we have 4 technically approved AP courses, but we have many, many more that will prepare you for the test, although we don't teach to the test. So AP can look impressive on a transcript, but unless you actually pass the AP exam with a solid score, it's not going to let you test out of a class like the dual enrollment did for my own kids. So that is the essential difference of AP and dual enrollment. Lastly, I'm going to talk about student stories. As I mentioned to you earlier, I have the pleasure and privilege of working with hundreds of students from the last, I don't know, 10 years I've been doing this, something like that. And it is amazing the stories we have. They're putting this in the chat box, or you can copy and paste this and open it up in a tab after we all finish, and just to hear some of our amazing stories. We have kids in military academies, we have kids in Ivy League, we have kids doing gap years, we have kids being missionaries, and it's absolutely inspiring to hear what Veritas graduates are doing. I'm going to now turn it over to one of my colleagues, Jennifer Belushi, and she's going to share. She's also a parent of a graduate this year, and she's going to share a little bit more about her story.
Okay, sorry about that. So my story is that I came to Veritas several years ago as a family. actually like 7 or 8 years ago. We started with one class, we jumped into multiple classes, we joined the diploma program, and I've been so passionate about how well my children have learned and what they've been able to do that I joined in and started helping other families so that they could do the same thing. I do have 5 kids. My husband and I live here in South Texas. We have 5 children, ages 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18. Susan is my academic advisor for my kids, and my children are in 4th, 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th grade. So I do have a graduating senior this year. When you decide that you're interested at Veritas, what you would do is you would fill out a consult form, and I think someone can put the link in there. We have a family consultant group that has 6 family consultants, and we all have students that are in the program and can give you additional information on all classes, materials, and more. And let's see, as a family consultant, we can help you build a plan that's going to work for your family. So each family has a different plan. It's one of the coolest things about Veritas is that you don't join and say, this is 6th grade and everybody does the same thing. You come in and we see where your kid's at and what they need for their level. So sometimes you might have a student in 6th grade math, but they might be in, a 5th grade literature class, or they might be in all 6th grade classes, or they might jump into some of the 7th grade classes. There's lots of flexibility at Veritas, and that has been one of the most amazing things for me as a mom. As a family consultant, we do offer consults. You can book on any of our calendars. We meet with families all day long. So you can meet early in the morning or late at night. Some of us even work on weekends. We discuss what Veritas has, what you're currently doing, how we can implement Veritas into your program. If you have a question about, I'm coming from a BECA and I'm not sure where to place my student math or grammar wise, we can offer some placement tests. We can do this for you if you want full-time or part-time options. So we are the people that assist with moving you into the full-time program, but we can also help you as a part-time family who wants to do about 5 classes. Veritas also this year, or maybe it's been a few years now, but we use ESAs. So if you live in a state that has an educational savings program, we do accept them. And most of the family consultants are very, very well versed on them. At times we do have to ask questions to other people just because there's lots of stuff changing. But you can just reach out to us and ask about your specific state. We also love to start people in the summer. We do have summer classes. There's 3 different summer sessions. So we have summer A, summer B, and summer C. Summer A and B will be 6 weeks long. They meet 4 times a week, so Monday through Thursday for 3 hours a day, 8 to 11 or 11 to 2 Eastern time. It's a great way to start and kind of dip your toes into Veritas. It's also a great way if you have a student taking a lot of classes to kind of lighten their load during the school year. This year, we have a bunch of classes offered in summer A and B, and I'm excited for the additional classes in summer C. Last year was the first year that summer C was introduced, and it was just with 1 class for Composition 1. But this year, we now have Algebra 1, Business Math, Comp 1, Comp 2, General Science, Geometry, Latin, and Physical Science. And so it is a year-long class condensed into 6 weeks, or in the summer C being 12 weeks. But you do have a teacher, you have other classmates, you have assignments, and it's a lot of fun, and they really do bond. And I would say as a parent, my children have done summer classes for the last 4 or 5 years. We've done Latin, we've done Omnibus, my daughter did a business math class. So they're really, really amazing classes, and there's great teachers. This is a slide about VSA's impact. This is from another family who, shares their story. I would say that they have an amazing story as well. But my story and the impact that VSA has had for us is that with my 5 kids, we have taken almost 100 classes. We'll hit 100 next year. We've had 43 different teachers. Some of them we've had on repeat just because we've loved them so much. My students have done Veritas from kindergarten through 12th grade, not all of them starting at the kindergarten level. My daughter, who is 18 and graduating this year, will be at EOIG. She's the only student at Veritas to have completed all the math courses. She also has a very nice GPA, has been guided very, very nicely by Susan. And Susan helped us to build an amazing plan that got her into 4 schools. She applied to 4 schools, was accepted to 4 schools, and between adding all of the funds from all of the schools, had almost $550,000 in college scholarship. She also is an NCAA athlete. Susan took care of all of that for me, so all I had to do was have my daughter fill out the form, and she was accepted, everything transferred over, and she'll be diving in the fall. I think now it is time for the Q&A section. So I will let you guys ask some questions.
Thank you all for being here. And for those of you who presented, thank you for being here as well. You can go ahead and begin posting your questions. We are only going to, I know we're a little over, so we'll just take a few minutes to answer the most pressing as they come. And we'll be monitoring them here. So if you have any questions, go ahead and you can get started with those. And I'll invite some colleagues up to answer some questions. Here's one question that we have. How important is it for my student to take Latin? I'll open that. Any of you would be great to answer this question. So whoever would like to jump on and speak onto that issue. How important is it that their student take Latin?
Rebecca, I'm gonna jump on that one. Studying Latin is a part of who we are. You could say that it's a part of our fabric here. If your student is young, it's especially significant because we're not teaching Latin to our students so that they can necessarily read works in the original language in which they were written. We believe that Latin is, as we sometimes say, a tool of leverage for mastering the English language. And so understanding English will be enhanced by your study of Latin. And I'll also say to those who are anticipating studying any of the Romantic languages, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian, if you study Latin first, then your study of those modern foreign languages, those Romantic languages, is going to go much easier. But I'd say that the principal benefit is that it's a tool of leverage for mastering English. On that front, I'll also just quickly say that we offer Latin at the grammar school level, 3 courses, Latin for children A, B, and C. We then have Latin transition courses at the middle school level, Latin 1, Latin 2, Christian authors, classical authors, and Virgil. So there's a lot of Latin here. And it is a wonderful language to learn.
Can I just give a quick testimonial about that really quick, Rebecca? So my daughter's in 4th grade this year. We started a VSA with her in 2nd grade. So she did a year of informal logic in 2nd grade and then formal year of logic in 3rd. And then in 4th grade, currently right now, her 2nd formal year of logic. So 3 years of logic or Latin, I'm sorry, of all together, but 2 formal years. And last year we were driving in the car and we passed a sign or something like that. And my daughter, what does that mean? And she immediately out loud processed it, thought of the Latin root, and was able to give me the definition of the word. And then recently we were reading a story out loud and the word trio came up and I stopped and I said, what does that mean? She said, 3. So her vocabulary has just soared with having.
Amy, thank you so much for adding that testimony. That's wonderful. Here's a question that maybe any of you could jump in for too. How do your courses work for students with learning challenges, specifically dyslexia? Have they been able to navigate our full-time diploma program?
So I'll jump on and answer that one, Rebecca. So I do have a daughter that has dyslexia. One of the things that we do for her is she's actually on the younger side, so she's in 4th grade. We went back a year for reading. We do have a tutor on the outside, so we have that kind of stuff. But in terms of Veritas, we offer educational accommodations. And we have a specific advisor that works with our family, not Susan, but an additional advisor. So we have 2. And this educational accommodations advisor sets everything up with the teachers and gives the accommodations that we need. So if we need to be able to read the question to our daughter on a test, we're able to do that. There's a variety of accommodations that you can get approved, but you need to work with that advisor to get the specific ones for you.
Thank you so much, Jen. Another question here we have is, you mentioned that summer classes are 8 and 11 and 11 and 2. My son is taking tennis camp from 9 to 1. Can there be any classes offered at 2 p.m.? I'll just quickly respond and say, yes, there are some courses offered at 2 p.m. They are not as robust of offerings as there are at the 8 and 11 time slots, but definitely reach out to a family consultant and see, or an academic advisor if you join our full-time program, and see what works for you. Okay, another question. Do you provide a high school transcript to part-time students? If yes, is there a minimum number of courses? And then it also has an additional question about issuing work permits to the enrolled student. Susan, can I ask you to take this question for us?
Sure thing. No, we do not issue transcripts to part-time students. That is a perk of being in our diploma program, and that's primarily because of our accreditation, and our accreditation says you can issue transcripts to full-time diploma students. The second part of that question, could you restate it, Rebecca?
Absolutely. Yeah, the second part says, do you issue work permits to enrolled students in general?
Oh yeah, I issue every permit. Yesterday I was issuing somebody to go to a homeschool dance. She has to be enrolled in some school. Yeah, you need I think the best work permit I ever finally got to the finish line was In-N-Out Burger in San Diego. That was a lot of hoops, but I have gotten 2 kids to work at In-N-Out Burger in San Diego. So yes, we do.
Awesome. And I'll actually keep you up for this last question we have too. It says, one of my kids is going to Algebra 1 in the fall. Would pre-algebra class in the summer be a good review for that? In your opinion, what do you think?
I would say likely. My only concern would be this, to make sure they would do very well in pre-algebra in the summer as a huge building block to that Algebra 1. We consider pre-algebra and Algebra 1 some of the 2 most significant, crucial math courses, a math foundation, and if that's a little shaky, then it's going to haunt them for their entire math career. So I would say yes, but if they don't have to pass with flying colors, but they need a solid B in order to be successful in Algebra 1.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we want to thank all of you for being here. I know we went a little over, but we're excited to be able to answer your questions. So we're glad that you stayed with us for that. I hope as you listen to everyone speak today, you realize that there's a place for you here at Veritas. If you want to be part-time taking just a single course, or you want to be with us full-time, we hope that you'll check it out. We have options in the summer, fall, all the way through the spring. We have so many things available for you. We also have mini courses coming up. That may be a great option if you simply want to explore an option that just is a few weeks to see and get to meet some of our teachers. They're put on by them. We're so thankful you're here. The link to that is here in the chat, and we look forward to seeing you very soon.